elections. Let's talk about some of the results and the changes that are happening with the City Commission.
Yeah, happy to start on that really important topic. Also just want to say thanks for having me again. It's hard to believe it's December.
I know.
So I know many of us are looking back on the year behind us and ahead. And so there's some exciting things happening in the city, and maybe we can touch on those later. But
Absolutely.
The most important thing as we look back was our election in November. In the city of Grand Rapids, we had an extremely high turnout. We actually had fewer folks who voted absentee compared to 2 years ago, and more people who showed up at the polls on election day and voted. Quite a few folks used our drop boxes. And I should say, as we start talking about the results, it's an incredible team at the city through the clerk's department, our city clerk, his entire team, but also we have a lot of other folks in the city that help on election day. And then, as you know, election workers from throughout our community.
Tons of volunteers.
And a lot of volunteers. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who worked so hard to make sure that we had an extremely smooth election, very secure. We didn't have any major issues. All of the accessibility issues were addressed. And so I just want to say a huge thank you. So with the large turnout, this was the very first year that city commission races, which are nonpartisan, so both myself and my colleagues on the commission, we serve as nonpartisan elected officials.
Right.
This was the very first year that we had our city commission races on an even year. So historically, those were on odd years. There was a petition a number of years ago to move those to even years, and this is the first year that we've had that.
Okay.
So on the ballot were 3 commission races for second and third, all 3 competitive. And then our comptroller, Max France, was up for re-election, and he was unopposed. So he won his re-election without opposition.
Okay.
On the commission, quite a few changes. So Commissioner Reppart, who has served as a first ward commissioner, lost his race to Commissioner-elect Drew Robbins. So Drew will join the commission come January.
Okay.
Same thing in the second ward. Commissioner Joe Jones, who has served for a number of years on the commission, lost his re-election. And Lisa Knight will replace Commissioner Jones. And then in the third ward, it was an open seat because of term limits. And so some people don't realize that we also had a petition drive to implement term limits at the city. So now all of us, myself included, other than the comptroller, we are term limited to 2 terms. So that was an open seat. So we'll be saying goodbye to Commissioner Lanier, who has served on the commission for a number of years, 2 terms, and will be replaced by Kelsey Perdue.
Okay.
So we'll be, and then we have some library commissioners who are also elected, and so we have 2 commission meetings left this year, tomorrow night, and then we have one on the 13th.
Which is not normal. We usually only have the one, so we just have a lot of stuff to discuss and go over.
Yes, so unfortunately, because the holidays, we tend to put our meetings together back to back in December, just because of how Christmas and New Year's fall. So we'll be back together after the 13th. We'll be back together in January. So on the 13th, we'll finish up year end. A lot of items will be on our agenda. We'll also say goodbye to our current commissioners and thank them for their service to our city. And then the following night, on Wednesday, the 14th, in the evening at 7, we'll be swearing in the new city commissioners and the library commissioners and the comptroller.
Okay.
So we'll say goodbye to the commissioners who've been serving on Tuesday and then say hello to and welcome the ones that were just recently elected.
And any community member can come and attend these commission meetings and also the swearing in?
Yes.
Okay.
So commission meetings are always open to the public. Currently, they are, our standing meetings are in the morning. People can come and watch. And currently, our evening meetings start at 7. We will be making some changes likely to the schedule for next year to try to provide more opportunity for folks who either can't make it in the evening or they can't stick around long enough at the end of the meeting to give public comment at 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
So that is an agenda item on our agenda tomorrow to discuss.
Okay.
And then we'll likely make some additional changes to our commission meetings next year.
Okay. And they're located at downtown?
Yep. So they're at City Hall. The next 2 are at City Hall. The swearing in will be at City Hall in the 9th floor chambers. So when you go into City Hall, just take it to the 9th floor, and the chambers are right there. Okay. But we will be doing next year commission nights out again.
Okay.
And so we'll rotate those between the wards, and as we solidify that schedule, we'll make sure that gets out as well.
And it's all on the website?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other upcoming events or things that you want to share with us? I know we talked a little bit about the Neighborhood Matching Fund.
Yeah, so I love the Neighborhood Match Fund is a program that was started actually early when I became mayor, and it's a pot of money that the City Commission sets aside, and we encourage folks from the community to apply for funds anywhere from $500 to $5,000, believing that a passionate group of individuals in their own community can do great things with, it's sometimes not that much money.
Right.
So they can apply for their ideas, and then we have a team that reviews the applications, and then those are awarded. So right now, through the end of the year, through December 31st, we're accepting applications for Neighborhood Match Fund.
Okay.
It's a really easy application process. If you need help, we have folks in our engagement department that leads our Neighborhood Match Fund that can help you with that. And so it's a match fund, so you have to match. Let's say you want $5,000 to do something in your neighborhood, but the match can be a number of things. It can be monetary, dollar for dollar. It can be volunteer hours. It can be in-kind donations.
Okay.
So really, we just want it to be truly a partnership between the city and the community, and so that's what we're looking for.
Okay, and they can just go to the website again, to the city's website to apply and do that application. Wonderful. Yeah. All right. Also, I just recently learned from you that there's going to be some new structures to Art Prize.
Yeah, so this has been talked about for the last couple of months now, as Art Prize has finished up. They finished up, obviously, this year's in October, and was really thinking about what does the future evolution look like. And there has been an agreement to make it a stronger public-private partnership and evolve that structure and governance. And so the City of Grand Rapids, Downtown Grand Rapids Inc., and Kendall College of Art and Design, we have come together along with a number of the board members who were on the Art Prize on board, and then additional individuals from the private sector to create a new structure where the Art Prize staff will work out of Kendall, DGRI or Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. will act as the fiduciary, and then we'll bring people together as we look at the planning for Art Prize for next year and beyond.
Okay.
And really just thinking about how do we take what we love about Art Prize and how do we really honor what Art Prize has been to our city in the past, and then think about ways to make it not just make sure it's here for the future, but also to scale it up,
right,
and to really encourage more people to get engaged and involved.
And just keep it innovative, do some changes and keep it exciting.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah. So a lot of details yet to be determined. Tomorrow on the City Commission agenda is what we're calling a memorandum of understanding between the Art Prize organization and the city, and then that will also go to Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. Board for approval, and then Kendall as well, and then that will create kind of the new governance model.
Okay.
So a lot of the things we love about Art Prize will stay the same.
Right.
There will be a new governance model, and then hopefully, as I said, more people engaged.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
And there's a couple other things coming up. I did see that the city and water and sewer are having some rate increases due to some studies that you have recently done.
Yeah, we are, and this is always a hard thing to do. We know that there are some people that really struggle, and people are struggling with inflation right now. So talking about increases to our water and sewer rate is always a difficult thing, except that we need to make sure that we have enough funds to support the system.
Yep, absolutely.
So our water system is actually a multi-jurisdictional system. So we have other cities and units of government that also use our water and sewer. So it's a utility, as we call it, multi-jurisdictional utility. And they do a rate study. Our city CFO is involved as well. A rate study every single year to make sure that we're collecting enough money through fees to pay for the service. And it covers everything from infrastructure to daily operations. So we did that study, and then we try to smooth it out over the course of 3 years so that if we do have an increase, it's not dramatic.
Right, yes. Yeah.
So what's being proposed right now, we are taking public comments. So if you have concerns or you have thoughts about the increases, please let us know.
Okay.
You can contact the city. But it's about a 6% increase for the water and about a little over 1% for sewer. So combined, it's about an 8% increase throughout the year. And the other thing I should let you know is that we do have funds set aside for individuals or families who are struggling to pay their water and sewer bills.
Okay.
So if you are struggling to pay your utility bill, water and sewer specifically, please reach out to the city and learn about some of the supports we have for that.
Okay.
I really encourage you to do that.
So is there going to be a start date for the new rates, or is that after you kind of?
Yeah, so typically the rates will kick in as part of our fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. And let's just touch really quickly, we just have a couple more minutes before we have our guest. There's going to be some improvements over at Veterans Memorial Park with the building that's been sitting there.
Yeah.
So we got a couple more minutes. You want to share what they're doing over there?
I will. So this is a great story, and when our Parks Director comes on, he can speak to this as well. So many of us know that there at Veterans Park, we have this beautiful old historic building.
Yes.
And it has been either vacant or underutilized for a very,
as
very
long as I've lived here,
time. Yes, and it's beautiful.
Absolutely.
So several years ago, we actually had a proposal and some community conversations about what can we do with that space, and how can we make it usable, but also really honor the veterans who the park is dedicated to, and create opportunities. So Has Heart is an organization in town. Their vision is to take that space and create a coffee shop, and then also create space for individuals who are veterans to use it really as a creative opportunity to show their artistic work, but also to come together, have coffee, get to know one another, and just really be a community space.
And raise awareness about the struggles that many of our veterans are dealing with as well.
Yeah.
So when is that going to start?
So construction, and David probably will have more information on this. So we did the groundbreaking. Construction is underway. We're hoping, I think, to have it opened and a ribbon cutting in the spring. But it has truly been a partnership between the city, our Parks Department, Has Heart, the organization, Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. has been supportive, and the DDA has contributed as well.
That's great. So I'm looking forward. So our next guest that will be with Rosalynn Bliss is David Marquardt, and he will be joining us here in just after this break.
For over 30 years after humble beginnings as a public access TV station, the Community Media Center has grown to be an active, multi-platform media and technology assistance organization, encouraging and enabling our community to push the creative boundaries. We power a variety of resources, including a music-centered community radio station, WYCE, a community venue with stage and screen at Wealthy Theater, citizen-driven journalism with the Rapidian, a web development team empowering local nonprofits, an education department that trains and broadens students' minds, and a free speech public access television studio, GRTV, where it all began. By introducing audiences to new voices and ideas, we enhance community engagement and create connections between artists and audiences, enriching our city's cultural offerings. We empower and collaborate with platforms and resources accessible to all and used by all. Every free democratic society depends on media, accessible to the community and uncensored by government. The Community Media Center continues this work for the media landscape of today and tomorrow. These platforms and services empower our neighbors to tell their stories and explore the richness of culture that Grand Rapids has to offer. Connect, discover, learn, create, and share. The Grand Rapids Community Media Center.
All right, welcome back. Glad to be back, as Starla said, with our Parks Director. So we're just going to spend a little time talking about the Parks Department, some of the changes that have been made over the years under our Parks Director's leadership, some of the things you can expect, and we're going to continue to encourage you to get outside and use our amazing public spaces, even when it's cold outside. So with that, I'll turn it to our Parks Director. And why don't you tell us first a little bit about you? And let's see, you've been in Grand Rapids, is it 6 years?
It's going to be 8 years in January.
Oh,
right.
My goodness, time goes by fast.
Time flies. So
Wow.
I'm a Midwestern guy to the core. Grew up in Wisconsin, just the other side of the lake. But we traveled over here quite a bit to be with family, to do some camping up in northern Michigan. I can distinctly remember when we were younger with my older brother and I, we were climbing on the dunes, hanging out in the water, and we said to each other, there's going to be a day we both live in Michigan.
Nice.
I'm here. He's not here yet, but I feel pretty lucky to be over here.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And before coming to Grand Rapids, you were in Colorado.
Yeah, Denver, Colorado. I worked for the city of Denver for about 7.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And your background is landscape architect.
Landscape architecture, public administration. In Denver, I was with the Parks and Recreation Department out there. I worked for a Parks Department in Wisconsin, just out of college. So, quite a bit of history in that realm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we're glad to have you.
Yeah.
Lots going on in the Parks Department. So many of you know that parks and green space and playgrounds and pools have been near and dear to my heart ever since I've been on the commission, which is going on 17 years, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Right.
And the Parks Department is very, very different than it was almost 15 years ago, over 15 years ago. Since that time, we have passed 2 parks millages. So one was dedicated to capital improvements, and we did a lot of that work, investing millions of dollars into our parks to make much needed repairs and improvements. And then a number of years ago, the voters, thank you, all of you who supported the Parks millage. The voters supported a millage that provided additional support to do not just some capital improvements and maintenance, but also help with some operations and recreation.
Yep.
So why don't you share a little bit about what people can expect from the Parks Department today? How is it different in your opinion?
Yeah, I'm so glad you bring this up. I mean, this community has been incredibly supportive of the parks and the parks work that we do. In the last 7.5 years, the 2013 millage was set to invest $28 million of taxpayer funding. Over the last 8 years now, it will be, we've been able to invest a little over $74 million, and commissioners will get this annual update next week at our December 13th meeting. Okay. But that's been really important to share because we've been able to leverage those very important tax dollars to go and capture some and leverage more outside funding, like funding from the state of Michigan and their Department of Natural Resources. We're annually going after some different grants to support a number of projects throughout the community. But as you had indicated, in 2019, voters said yes, not only to more capital improvements, but they said yes to some additional things, 2 of which include more recreational support to getting people outside and being active, but also to help support some of the maintenance and operations in our park system. So residents can begin to see more attention to those 2 things, including free activities and free outdoor recreational fitness classes that we offer.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And some great things. We don't do it alone. We have lots of great partners. One of the partners is Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. So recently we opened up some futsal. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Futsal
perfectly.
courts.
Yeah.
And so you want to tell us about that, but we also invested in additional pickleball courts. And why don't you talk a little bit about kind of that recreational component that we've added?
You bet. Partnerships are so crucial to our success. Downtown Grand Rapids Incorporated, as you indicate, has been one of those partners, and they've recently helped to acquire a vacant parcel of land not far from here on the west side of Grand Rapids and converted that land into some futsal courts. Very popular sport. It's played like soccer, but much in a smaller condition and in a fenced condition as well. And so we've got those courts here on the west side of Grand Rapids. We have added a number of pickleball courts up in Belknap Park. There are plans for more. We are investigating the potential for some indoor facilities as well for pickleball. Nice. In order to help expand that sport more in a year-round fashion. So yeah, tremendous things going on.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's kind of exploded over the last several years.
It really has.
And people all over. I know we had the big pickleball tournament here in the summer, which was great.
Yeah.
And it's not just for children and families. We also were recently at a groundbreaking for some work we did at the dog park, but we also added dog parks to downtown and on the west side. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you bet. So we've got 2 dog parks here in Grand Rapids, one at Colville Park on the west side, the other up at Hillcrest Park. Hillcrest Park is where we just recently made some improvements. It was a substantially sized dog park, but what we did is expand it a little bit more, put in a new accessible entrance in from the sidewalks along the street front, but then added some kind of cute, fun, nature-based play elements for the dogs, but also for some children and families that participate up there as well.
Yeah, it looks great. That's in my neighborhood, so I walk by there all the time and
Perfect.
see all the dogs who are eager to get in there. You know, and as we, you know, one thing that we've talked a lot about as well at the city is how do we make sure that we really embrace that we're a 4-season city, and that includes all of our green space and park space. So you've worked hard over the last several years, again with some partners, to look at what are our assets and how do we encourage people to still get outside in the winter. So do you want to talk about some of the winter activities that individuals can still participate in?
You bet. A couple of things on this approach. So we understand that it's not only providing activities, but ensuring that we're caring for those assets that are in place already and able to be used better. And what I mean by that specifically is that we are more dedicated now to plowing more of our trail system throughout the city of Grand Rapids, so that there's walking access, bike access, getting people to these destinations that they can participate in different activities. Throughout the winter, residents can expect to see updates on where we will have sledding and different sledding events. We, of course, always have the ice skating downtown at Rosa Parks Circle. That just opened up last week with the weather conditions, helping us out there. I know. And then down at Indian Trails Golf Course, which the city owns and operates as well, and that's just off of Kalamazoo and 28th Street, we have a number of things taking place down there as soon as the snow hits the ground. We've got cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, fat tire biking available as well. The clubhouse will be open on the days at which those activities take place. So when you're finished up, come on in for a hot chocolate, warm cup of coffee, beverage of your choice. It's all available.
Yeah, it's great. So I did that last year, went out and did some horseshoeing.
Nice.
Or snowshoeing, not horseshoeing.
There we go.
I don't know where that came from. Snowshoeing at Indian Trails. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
For people who don't have snowshoes, you can rent them there.
Right.
And same with, I can't remember, did you have cross-country skis there as well?
We do not have cross-country skis.
Okay.
Residents are encouraged to bring their own if they have them.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So yeah, and that also, there's gear in our gear library also for folks. If they really want to go out sledding or snowshoeing and they don't have the equipment.
Exactly.
Do you want to talk about our gear library?
You bet. The gear library is a brand new element to our park system, thanks in part to a grant from the Outdoor Foundation. They helped us to establish something that I believe this city really needs, many cities really need. And through this grant opportunity, we've been able to solicit a number of really great donations from outdoor retailers, outdoor providers, like snowshoes, like winter jackets, boots, hiking gear. So if you don't have those things, we encourage you to come on down, check us out at the Parks and Recreation Department or at the Gear Library, which is located directly in Roosevelt Park. There is no charge to use this equipment. Just leave us with a driver's license number and we'll set you on your way with the things that you need.
Yeah, it's a great resource for individuals and families. And I love that we're adding plowing to our trails, and there's so many throughout the entire city. You know, obviously Richmond Park is a great park for sledding.
Yep.
I typically go and walk at Riverside Park or Huff Park. Those are my two favorites if I'm not walking around my neighborhood, or through Aquinas College, which I tend to use as my neighborhood park, and they seem to be okay with that. But there are so many great spaces that you can go and still get outside.
Really?
And so we encourage people to do that. So we just have a couple more minutes. As we close up, I know tomorrow we have a commission meeting. We have 2 items before us to apply for MDNR, Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund.
That's
Try
right.
not to say acronyms too much. Those are for funds for MLK and Roosevelt. Those are 2 priority parks for us with 2 significant projects we'd like to see done sooner than later.
That's right.
So do you want to speak to those?
Absolutely. So we've got a really important project happening down at Martin Luther King Park, a complete reconstruction of the Lodge facility. And associated with that, we are rebuilding the playground space. So it will be a brand new, fully universally accessible play space. Plaza Roosevelt is the other project that we are embarking on in partnership with the state of Michigan, and that is to build a brand new park in the Plaza Roosevelt neighborhood, which has been a really important partnership with Habitat for Humanity and the creation of new housing and a new Grand Rapids public school there as well.
Yeah, so that's right off of Granville, and it's about an acre, is that right?
It is about an acre.
Yeah, it's about an acre worth of land. It's really beautifully set right by the school, and then housing, both rental and home ownership.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful added space to Granville. Another priority for me, in addition, so we're excited about the MLK Lodge. That's been a priority for a long time and a priority to the neighborhood and community.
Absolutely.
We also want to make some investments into the lodge at Roosevelt Park.
Exactly.
And so remind me the timeline on that, and then we'll finish this segment up and we'll move over to Q&A.
Yeah, so we've done some very conceptual design as a part of our last 5-year master plan update with the neighborhood to envision what that space may be like. At this point in time, starting in the new year, we'll begin getting back into the detailed design with residents, specifically around what they would like to see within that space, so that we know how to renovate that just right.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I know those two have been on my priority list for a long time, and I know they're priorities to the neighborhoods, on top of just investments we're making in parks all over the city. So hopefully you've noticed those. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to us directly at the Parks Department. They have a robust social media presence, which is fabulous, so you can always connect with them there as well. So we'll take a little break and we'll come right back.
The Wealthy Theater is Grand Rapids' local movie theater and performance center. Since 1998, it has been a host to nationally touring music groups, local theater performances, and a variety of community events. Today, the Wealthy Theater is not only a landmark community treasure with historic significance, but a pioneer in the infusion of technology and traditional theater. Underneath the elegance and classic sensibility that defines Wealthy Theater, there is a matrix of new technologies. The theater is completely digital and outfitted with cameras and microphones for concerts, theater and comedy troupes, speakers and lecturers, and so much more. Experience all that Wealthy Theater has to offer. And bring a friend. Be surprised by the Wealthy Theater.
WYCE is a world of music. We aim to shine a light on underserved musical artists in a non-commercial format with no advertisements. Volunteers come in to create personalized music programming that broadcasts over the air at 88.1 FM to West Michigan and via the internet to listeners all over the world. These listeners sponsor our efforts, keeping WYCE independent and community-owned. Musicians use the station to broaden their audience and build support for their latest projects by submitting their music to be included in our broadcast and performing live in studio. Businesses find their customers through underwriting, nonprofits inform the community to their mission, and listeners stay informed about local events. We believe that music is a powerful force that creates quality relationships in our community, that speaks to our emotions, and provides the soundtrack to our lives.
And welcome back. We're glad that you've joined us. So now is your opportunity now for you to ask some questions for David. One of our first questions is coming from Kate, And she asks, how are parks selected for improvement? I have a park just a block away from my house that no one uses because it's in dire need of attention.
Great question, Kate. I think we're going to try to find out maybe where that park may be, but more generally, the way in which we select parks for improvement are based around our adopted master plan. And that is something that we look at on a 5-year rolling basis. City commissioners just approved the last master plan in January of 2022. And within that plan, we very specifically called out an equity-based approach to our capital improvements and selection. And so we've actually come up with a ranking and a scoring for those parks so that we can look at ensuring that we're investing in historically underinvested areas of the city, which is a top priority of ours and of the city managers. But then also looking at asset need and asset condition. So those two things combined is how we are working our way around the city. With the first millage and the 7-year millage since 2013, it was very much based on priorities and age of things and those things that were really falling apart and they needed that attention. So if we haven't gotten to your park just yet, I'm quite certain that we will very soon.
Yeah, and I should add, we have a list of upcoming parks, not just for this year, but for next summer as well.
We do.
And we also have a Parks Advisory Council. So that is a group of individuals, residents, and some of our partners, and they get together and they also weigh in on issues, provide feedback. Those meetings are public.
Okay.
And you can find out more about the Parks Advisory and even weigh in at that level. During one of the meetings, they will often take feedback from folks.
Exactly. I'm glad you bring that up because those meetings are public. Residents are encouraged to attend if they wish. Those meeting minutes are always available online.
Okay.
As well as the master plan. The full master plan is located online as well for any of that information.
All right, perfect. All right, now this question comes from David, or for David by Nate, I apologize. It says, I used to play tennis at Belknap all the time, but it seems like they've all been turned to pickleball. I'd love to have access to tennis courts again in the Belknap area.
Yep. So pickleball has most definitely become a very, very popular sport, not even just here in Grand Rapids, but across the nation. And so we've seen a particularly high demand and great success with the sport as well in that park and in different events that we've helped to coordinate with the pickleball membership. But I will say that we are looking more specifically at Belknap Park, both for some potential expansion of pickleball courts, but I would say too that would be an opportunity for us to evaluate other opportunities for improvements in that area as well. So we could certainly consider some additional tennis court or two if residents have that demand and that need.
Yeah. And we are trying in some of our other parks where we are adding pickleball. There in some of our parks there'll be both tennis and pickleball.
Right.
Not necessarily in within walking distance of your house or in your neighborhood, but we are trying to make sure that we kind of spread the different resources out throughout the city.
Right.
And so we'll continue to take a look at that.
Exactly.
So is there a list, or can you list where some actual tennis courts are still right now in play that they can go, I mean, in the winter maybe not.
Yeah.
But are there some neighborhoods that still have their tennis courts?
Most definitely. We've got a number of parks that have tennis courts across the city in each of the 3 wards. We do list on our webpage, grandrapidsmi.gov/parks and recreation, a list of all of our parks and the amenities within those parks, and so residents are encouraged to check that out.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a great place to look as well if you want to use one of our pavilions or rent some space from the Parks Department. Go to the city website and you can do that as well.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
All right, and this is from Rodney, and not a question, just more wanted to say that he lives near Roberto Clemente Park, and I love the new renovations.
I do too.
That's great.
Thank you, Rodney, for weighing in.
Yeah.
I know David can speak to this too. This is one of my favorite parks that we've redeveloped over the last several years. There's so many elements to it that are environmentally sustainable, but also a lot of feedback from the community went into the design of that park, and we just won an award for it.
We did from the state of Michigan Landscape Architecture Association, I believe. They gave us a design award for that project. We're super happy about that. We had phenomenal neighborhood and resident engagement and participation. I fully believe that that's why we've got the product that we do. This was a project where we were really able to showcase quite a bit. Not only a brand new shelter facility that better accommodates neighborhood farmers markets and family gatherings, but it was our park with our first all-gender, gender-neutral restroom facility.
Oh, great.
That has turned out remarkably well and been very well received by the public, and so we intend for that to be a model in other parks moving forward as well.
All right,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. I should add one other exciting project that we've worked on the last couple of years that I'm proud of is we've also added a fully accessible park for children and families of all
that's
abilities.
great.
And that one is really near and dear to my heart as well. And we had a lot of input from community partners and the neighborhood. Do you want to speak to that?
We did. So this park is down at Ottawa Hills. I'm glad you brought that up. Again, another remarkable project. The mayor is correct. This is our first fully universally accessible play space. We worked very closely with disability advocates on this project, which was remarkable because they were able to identify things for us I know for a fact we would have never considered or even thought about. And those things are built into that project. I love to share the example just because it is so specific. And typically what we see are these plastic slides in a lot of our play spaces nowadays.
Right.
They encouraged us to think about also incorporating metal slides because of children with hearing devices and hearing impairment. Those plastic slides can actually create a static electricity that can mess up their hearing.
Right.
So that's kind of a cool little thing that we were able to build into the project.
Yeah.
And I think that just adds into the city's goal of being inclusive. That's one way that we can be super inclusive.
Absolutely.
I love that. I did not know that. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, and then this question, again, also for David, is from George. Since it is used as a de facto dog park already, are there any plans to add a properly enclosed dog park at Cambridge Park to prevent dogs from running into the street?
Yeah, George, that's a really great question. That is something that we are actually going to be considering. We will be embarking on, believe it or not, a dog park master plan or a pseudo master plan of sorts that will look at our facilities across the city, Cambridge being one of them, to ensure that we are providing, the type of amenities that residents really need and where they need them.
Okay. Now you had mentioned Hillcrest as a dog park. Is that the one on Lion Street or which?
That's exactly
that
correct.
Is that one. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. And then this is from Men. When does skating at Rosa Park start this year? I walk by all the time and haven't seen it going on yet.
Yeah, great question, Min. It just got started last week. We opened up. The weather finally cooperated with us, and we were able to finish making ice and get a good, solid, and stable base that will hold us through most likely the end of February when we typically shut down the ice rink.
Yeah. And they're open from 10 a.m. to 9:30 or 9 o'clock?
That's right, 7 days a week, usually between 10 and noon, depending on the day of the week, and open until about 9:30 in the evening. Right.
Okay. And we have ice skates for folks to rent,
do.
$2 for children, $4 for adults.
Exactly,
Yeah.
you got it.
And passes are available.
Passes are available. You can buy a punch card if you'd like to come down there with great frequency. You can save a little money and buy a punch pass as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then this is from Michael. I love the futsal, hopefully I'm saying it right, futsal courts at Lincoln Park, but they're always being used. Can we build some more courts?
Oh, yeah, that's great. The mayor and I were actually just speaking about futsal courts, and there are some new courts that were added not far from here where we are filming today, and those were put in place by our partners at Downtown Grand Rapids Incorporated.
Yeah.
And so we do understand that there is a significant need, and we'll continue to add more where we've got space and the ability to do that.
Yeah, and those are, if you're not familiar with where those were added, it's on Seward,
Right,
right there by the dash lots.
Yep. Perfect. All right. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about the parks, or?
I'll share just two final things, and David, if you want to piggyback on them. One, the other thing that we recently added at Ottawa, and what we're doing around different parts of the city, is adding outside exercise equipment. So you'll likely see more of that or notice it. Another way to get outside and use our parks and also do a little exercise while you're out there. So we also have some down on Canal Park. And then the Parks Department is working really closely with a number of organizations as we look at connecting our trails. So David's been really active with the trail connectivity project to connect Leonard to Ann that will hopefully happen soon and connect all the way from downtown to the White Pine Trail and north to Cadillac. So that's another exciting project in the works.
Absolutely. You hit two good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
I'll just add that the fitness court that we added at Ottawa Hills Park was a really great partnership with Priority Health. They were instrumental in helping us to get the funding together to make that project happen. It's being used by residents. It's right next door to that play space that we discussed earlier, and so it's a nice combination for families to be together. And we do intend to break ground on the Leonard to Ann Trail connection this next spring, so we're excited about that.
Should be great.
Yeah.
And we should end by saying we work really closely with Grand Rapids Public Schools, and they're just great partners. David works with them. We have a city school liaison. We meet every other month, and a lot of these park projects, especially the ones adjacent to our schools, we've done in partnership with our friends at GRPS.
That's right. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, and now we will take a break.
How do you build a strong local food economy? Meet Chris. Chris is opening Osteria Rosa, a locally sourced Italian restaurant in a building brought back to life by 616 Development. But he doesn't know any local farmers to supply him with food year-round. This is Melissa. Melissa runs the Fulton Street Farmers Market and publishes a long list, even in the dead of winter, of available produce, meats, bakery goods, and more on the Rapidian. This is Amy. Amy wants to do more to support the farmers and her local food economy. Amy talks to Melissa, who introduces her to farmers at the Fulton Street Farmers Market, and Amy, in turn, publishes their stories, also on the Rapidian. Chris hears about the Rapidian and now has access to a local grocery list and information that he needs to make connections with local farmers. He feeds his patrons with local food year-round. Connections multiply. Meals are shared. A stronger local food economy is built.
And welcome back. My name is Starla McDermott, your host, and I am here with Mayor Rosalynn Bliss. And so we had a question that came in towards the end of our November City Connection show, and we weren't able to get to it. So Brent had a question. He states, I own Webster's Market in downtown Grand Rapids, and what are you doing to address the homeless committing crimes every day in the downtown business areas?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Brent, for that question, because you know how we respond to individuals experiencing homelessness or the unhoused is a really important topic that I know not just myself but my colleagues and a lot of city staff have been actively involved in for a long time. So a couple of things that we've done, and I know you're familiar with the homeless outreach team that we created a little over about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. We have added additional resources to that team to have mental health and behavioral health support. So if you're not familiar with the HOT team, it's made up of mental health professionals from Network 180, 2 of our police officers, 2 of our firefighters, and they do a lot of proactive outreach, relationship building, and we know that that's really important as we try to connect people to resources, right? We want people to be in a safe place with a roof over their head, and we want them to get the resources that they need to find stable housing.
Right.
So that will continue to be a priority. At the city, we do fund a lot of our nonprofit organizations. So we recently added funds to pay for and work in partnership with Mel Trotter to have bins that individuals can have where they can lock up what they own, so any of their belongings that they want to lock up and keep safe. We also supported and are partnering with Mel Trotter to have a day center there on Division.
Yep.
And warming centers. We work with a number of nonprofits for rapidly rehousing. We really believe in the housing first model. So how do we get individuals rapidly rehoused when they're experiencing homelessness? But we also know that there are individuals who are downtown. Some may be homeless, some may not be homeless. But when they commit a crime, we've heard that we need to also make sure that we have enforcement of people breaking the law.
Right, absolutely.
So we've worked in partnership with our police department, and unfortunately the police department has been short-staffed. They're working really hard to get back up to being fully staffed to where they can do more proactive policing and respond to calls that come in. But we, probably about 3 weeks ago, we started working with a number of individuals within our not just police department, but public works department, to have a greater presence downtown, so that when there is an issue or there is a crime committed by anyone,
right.
That we can respond more quickly. So we have heard from individuals this perception that downtown is not safe,
right.
And we want to make sure that we're responding to that. I also want to be clear, though, if you look at the data shows, if you look at the city as a whole, downtown is still very safe. About less than 13% of crimes committed in the city happen downtown. We want the whole city to be safe.
Right,
and we
absolutely.
want, when somebody calls 911 and there's a crime being committed and a police officer needs to respond and respond quickly, we want to make sure that we have an officer that can do that. So my approach is always holistic. How do we make sure that we're investing in resources to help people? How do we make sure that we're doing proactive outreach? And then when there is an issue, how do we respond? And recently at a public safety, I'll just end in this, know that all of those are important to us. Recently at a public safety committee, which we have every month at the city, the chief actually provided an update and shared some data, but also shared the fact that we knew that we were having an uptick in individuals selling drugs to vulnerable populations downtown, and we did send a team in, and I believe he said we made 10 or 11 arrests for people who were really taking advantage of individuals who are vulnerable.
Right.
So again, it's a partnership. We can't do it alone. We want the city to be safe. We want people to feel safe everywhere, downtown and in our neighborhoods, and we need to continue to partner together to do that.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. All right, now this question is from Travis. I've heard a couple of times about Grand Rapids having the most social zones in Michigan, but I don't know what that means. Is that just about a bar or a restaurant?
Yeah, so it's during COVID is when these social zones and social districts became allowable by law. And the intent was, especially with inside capacity being limited during the pandemic, how do we create outside spaces where people can add seats and have kind of extend the restaurant to outside spaces where we knew it was safer to be outside. So we saw a huge uptick of social zones and social districts. And what those are basically is that the district creates a boundary of where we allow folks to sell alcohol, and where they can go outside and drink it.
Expand their space.
Yeah, expand it. And so during COVID, we saw quite a few. So downtown had one, the West Side, and since kind of the pandemic has waned a little bit, we've seen fewer, or the zones have gotten smaller. But basically what it means, if you're a bar or restaurant and you want to be a part of a social zone, you can get permission. You got to get permission from the Michigan Liquor Control. City Commission has to approve it. And then you can sell a drink in a glass that is clearly marked that it's from
With
your
your logo,
establishment,
with your
with
logo, yes.
And you can go outside to the outside space and drink that, whatever it may be.
Right.
Right. So it could be hot chocolate with something in it. It could be a beer, but it has to be clearly marked, and then it's only allowed in those certain areas.
Okay.
So potentially, if you have, let's say, 3 restaurants in the same area, like on Ionia, you could get a drink at, let's say, GR Brewing, walk down the street with that drink. If you're waiting to get in for a table at Hopcat or Max's, you could finish your drink, and then you could go inside that establishment. So you
Okay.
can't take a drink from GR Brewing into, let's say, Max's.
Okay.
But in the outside space, you can drink it in between the two if it's in a social zone.
And so some of those will be staying up through the winter. I've seen some close down, but some of them will stay open.
Yeah, and that's really being driven by the business owner. And so on Monroe Center, you've seen them kind of scale back a little bit.
Yep.
I think you'll continue to see that. Same on the west side, some of those got scaled back. And I think you'll continue to have business owners kind of weigh the pros and cons and really, what resources do they have to have outside tables and have enough staff to kind of manage the outside space and inside space. But several of them are keeping outside spaces during winter.
And I think it looks great.
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't able to do it for so long, and it was a change that even though the pandemic was kind of a negative thing, having these outdoor spaces, you go to Europe, you see them all the time.
Yeah.
So I love to be able to just kind of stop, and I see places where you can have your dog
Yes.
while you're sitting outdoors enjoying a drink,
Yeah.
which I think is cool. So.
It's very cool. We need more of those.
Yes.
That's a health department issue at
Right,
times.
yeah.
But we at the city want to be a dog-friendly city.
Absolutely, yeah.
And very often will be very supportive of that.
Right. All right, and now this is from Sean. I saw on the news that there is a new transit app to ride the bus. Do I need to download the app to use the buses now?
So my understanding is no, it's an option though. So what we want to do at the Rapid is make sure that you can get the information you need as quickly as possible, and for individuals who use the bus a lot, the app would be a great additional resource for them. But you don't have to use it, but it is an option, and we encourage people to at least try it.
Okay, so you've got the Wave card that you
Yes.
can use, but the app, then you can actually pay with your app when
Yes.
you're getting on the bus.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's very cool. I
I
did
know.
not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like
All
a
right.
wallet. I know, and that's becoming more common everywhere. I think as technology moves so quick, sometimes
does.
it's hard to keep up on. But it's amazing what the new technology is allowing individuals to do more quickly and more accessibly. And I think, my opinion, public sector tends to take a little bit longer
Yeah.
to adopt some of this technology that
Right.
the private sector is using pretty readily. And my hope is that, whether it's the Rapid or the city or the county or other public entities, that we really start to wrap up our utilization of technology and innovation, just to make it, we want
It's
to
easy.
have good government, and we want it to be easy and accessible to navigate.
Absolutely, like the Motu app for parking.
Yes.
Super quick and easy. Love it.
Yes.
All right, well, that's all for the questions that we have, but I thought we'd touch back on, I know that the SAFE Task Force had their pitch night the other, on the 30th of November.
did, yeah.
And that is to help, it's called the Safe Alliance for Everyone, and it really is to help curb youth violence here in Grand Rapids. And so it was a total of $50,000.
Yep.
And so several individuals or nonprofits pitched their idea.
Yep.
And you want to share a little bit about
I
that process
will.
and then the
Yeah.
winners?
Happy to do that. So, so this is a process we started a few years ago, actually. Again, trying to support innovative, creative ideas from our community around violence prevention, and specifically gun violence prevention. So we started this a number of years ago. It's called Safe Pitch Night. Come pitch an idea. And we recently had one this past week. 5 organizations were selected to each receive $10,000 each to try out or to support one of their ideas around violence prevention. And then there's a panel of judges who actually ultimately make the recommendations. Those allocations will come back to the full City Commission for approval. But 5 organizations were selected, and they're all around supporting youth between the ages of 16 and 24. So one was Muse right here on the west side. They want to teach young people photography and other creative skills. We always say part of violence prevention is creating opportunity and hope,
Yep.
and that's exactly what they are doing. Center for Transformation was another one. They'll be doing some youth programming. Let me see, I should know them right off the top of my head, but they're just relatively new. I may have actually written them down. We Matter Now is another youth mentoring program. Another program that was funded was support for domestic violence victims, and this is specifically in the Hispanic community. So just really great organizations doing good work. But the nice thing about Pitch Night too is that you can pitch out any idea.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to be an organization that has a long track record. We really want to support grassroots efforts, and SAFE allows us to do that. Now that is in addition to the partnership that we have with the Urban League.
Okay.
So Urban League, we partnered with a little less than a year ago. to create an evidence-based violence prevention program called Cure Violence. So the city and the Cure and Urban League, and then the National Cure Violence organization is partnering on that. That is, I think it's a roughly $800,000 program. It's for 3 years. We're piloting it. We're collecting data, and that's where you have individuals from the community who build relationships, and they try to interrupt the violence before it happens.
Okay.
And so that program, Cure Violence, is also very, very important. And last month, during the participatory budgeting process, in the second ward, one of the top vote getters was to expand Cure Violence into the second ward.
Okay.
So we're doing it right now in the third ward, largely the third ward, a very targeted area. And next year you'll see us expand that to other parts of the city, including the second ward and some neighborhoods here in the first ward.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to quick say congratulations to the 5 winners, and it was all good sports, community kids, the Hatchet Player Development, Puerta Abiertas, I hope I said that correctly, and then We Matter Now. And so when do they officially, so they applied, they got granted this, how long do they have to take to present, do their program, do whatever they were going to present, and
so those
kind of
funds will
timeline.
get allocated through the city pretty quickly. In
Okay.
fact, they might be on our next agenda on the 13th.
Okay.
And then the city staff will work with them. We have a city staff assigned to Safe Pitch Night, and then we'll collect data on the outcomes of that program, but they'll have next year to implement.
Okay.
And then report back.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's really great. I love that.
Yeah.
Is there any other small bits of news that you think we need to share with our great city before we sign off? We got like 1 minute left.
All right. Well, I'll just end with a plug to as we enter this holiday season. I always encourage individuals to take a look right here in our neighborhoods and support our local businesses.
Absolutely.
They really need our support. I know lots of people are still online buying stuff, but if you can take some time to also get out and support our locally owned businesses as well, they need our support now more than ever. And we want them to continue to thrive and survive right here in our city, and to do that we need to support them. So happy holidays, and let's get out and support our neighbors who own those awesome businesses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and we hope that you all have a wonderful Christmas season.